They do. Oh, wow. Oh, that's so exciting.
Welcome, everyone. So we've got a slightly different meeting today, and you'll see that as we go forward. I want to welcome you all today. The theme for this month is Rotary Fellowship Month, so we'll have to focus on that. And as you know, Stephanie Urchek celebrates the magic of Rotary. We're down just a couple more. There we go. Vicki Allen is going to help us with the four-way test today. They only have one microphone that works. Yeah.
Please join me in the four-way test, and for the visitors, it's right up here. Of all the things you think, say, and do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, will it be fun?
Thank you. And I want to follow that. If I can have everybody to stand, we'll do the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So I told you that we're going to do things a little differently today. So we're going to have our speaker first and then our program, a little change of pace from what we normally do. Our speaker today is Steve Fine. He's the founder and president of the Melanoma Education Foundation. He attended colleges in the Boston area, receiving a doctorate in chemistry from Northeastern University. He then moved to Pennsylvania and completed a year of postdoctoral research at Lehigh University. And after 5 years as assistant professor of organic chemistry at Lafayette College in Pennsylvania, he moved back to New England, where he served in technical and management position in a high-tech chemical company. In 1989, he started a consulting practice in technology of high purity chemical manufacturing, currently serving 3 years as, or concurrently serving 3 years as vice president of technology for ACSI, a West Coast manufacturer of semiconductor chemicals. Shortly after, unfortunately, Dan, his son, died of melanoma in 1998 at the age of 26. And at that time, he founded a nonprofit Melanoma Education Foundation. And since 2000, he's devoted full-time to the foundation. The primary activity of the foundation is educating high school and middle school students on wellness about melanoma and providing them with free online lessons to educate the students about self-detecting melanoma while it's still curable. Prior to COVID-19, over 1,700 schools in all 50 states and in Canada were using the lessons served out by the foundation, resulting in saved lives of students, teachers, and their loved ones. So with that, I'm going to introduce Steve. Now, Steve is online. He's right there in the middle. And he's got I believe, a video presentation. But Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you. You're muted, or no, you're not muted. You're good. Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me. And it says sharing is not turned on.
Still there. You can drop down right there. And then multiple. That should work.
Okay, I think we are in business.
You got it?
I think so. So let's just check here, make sure. Okay.
Now he'll be able to share.
Okay, so bear with me while I boot up the PowerPoint. Sometimes it takes a minute or two. Can you see the title slide?
We can. Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll give you a very brief history of the organization, show you some photos of young people who lost their lives to melanoma, talk about the three common skin cancers, but focus on melanoma because it's the most serious of them. Talk about the role of ultraviolet radiation in causing melanoma, and if time permits, be happy to answer questions. So the Melanoma Education Foundation was officially incorporated as a nonprofit, a 501(c)(3) nonprofit in the year 2000. Unofficially, we began outreach a year before then. Our focus is early self-detection and prevention of melanoma. And you've already heard about our school program. That's one of two active programs that we have currently. The more recent one was to extend outreach to Rotary clubs that were located in the eastern half of the US and Canada. These are photos of young people who lost their lives to melanoma. They vary in age from 11 years old to 36 years old. My son Dan was 26 when he died of melanoma in 1998. Most cancers are diseases of aging. Melanoma is an exception. It can strike from preteen to elderly. There are three common skin cancers: basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma. The two carcinomas usually don't affect people under age 40. They are usually not fatal. They mostly occur on chronically sun-exposed areas of the skin, and although they're common throughout the U.S., they're even more common in the Sunbelt states. Melanoma isn't a class by itself. It can develop as young as preteen. If you don't find it early enough, it can be fatal. It can occur anywhere on the skin, even areas that have never been exposed to sunlight. And unlike the two carcinomas, the incidence of melanoma in the more northern states is not much different from that in most of the Sunbelt states. Basal cell carcinoma is the most common of all cancers worldwide. It usually looks like a pink or a flesh-colored nodule. Often they're cratered, which you can see in this photo. The good news is they grow slowly, they're almost never fatal, but they can grow faster under the skin than above the skin, so you're better off dealing with them sooner rather than waiting. Squamous cell carcinoma is more serious. It usually looks like a dry, scaly, slightly raised red patch that either bleeds or has a scab, as this one does. They originate from a precursor growth called actinic keratosis, which is very common in sun-sensitive individuals. Most actinic keratoses don't go on to become squamous cell carcinoma. The appearance of an actinic keratosis is similar to what you see here, except there's no scab. These tumors usually don't metastasize like melanoma, but if they're over or close to a vital organ, the tumor can grow, and if it reaches into that organ, it becomes more serious. They usually grow at a slow to moderate rate, but when they're on the lips, they tend to grow faster. Turning to melanoma, the American Cancer Society predicts over 212,000 new cases in the US this year. That makes it more than 5 times as prevalent as new HIV/AIDS infections. The irony of that is that almost every high school student in the country graduates knowing about HIV and AIDS, but relatively few know about melanoma, in spite of the fact that it's much deadlier and that it can affect them while they're young. On average, somebody in the US loses their life to melanoma once every hour, and 25% of new melanoma patients are under the age of 40. From the mid-20s to late 20s age groups, melanoma is the most prevalent of all cancers. And in women under 39, it's second only to breast cancer. So more bad news about it. Your vulnerability begins early in life. It doesn't peak like some of the childhood cancers. It continues to increase throughout your life. The average onset age is 65 years. It can strike no matter how good your health or physical condition is, and no matter what your skin color is. Only 10% of new melanomas involve a family history, the other 90% don't. And usually there aren't any symptoms except the kind you can see until it's too late. Once it gets beyond the skin and into an internal organ, it's often not curable. With all those dire features, there are two big redeeming features. First, it's the easiest of all cancers for you to find by yourself at an early stage. And if you find it early, it's all but guaranteed to be curable. Cure usually consists of going to a dermatologist, getting a shot of Novocaine, having the melanoma removed, and that cures you permanently without any need for chemo or radiation. The key is, though, for that to work, you must find it early. There are two kinds of risk factors for melanoma, the kind you're born with and can't do much about, and the controllable kind. Among the inherited risk factors, if you have 50 or more moles, if you have any large or irregularly shaped moles, and the more you have, the greater the risk. If you have sun-sensitive skin, or if you have a family or personal history of any kind of skin cancer. Very few of us don't have at least one of those risk factors, and many of us have multiple factors. Among the controllable risks are three that stand out. If you've had any blistering sunburns under the age of 20, just one doubles your lifetime risk of melanoma. Three or more increases your risk by a factor of 5. If you expose skin that's normally covered to strong sunlight, that's a high risk factor. And that's the kind of exposure we get in the northern states because we're indoors during the cold months of the year, protecting our skin, and then late spring and summer, we're out in the sun, exposing that skin to strong ultraviolet radiation. The worst thing you can do to get melanoma is to use tanning beds regularly, and I'll speak more about that later. In general, the lighter your skin, the greater your lifetime risk of melanoma. It's highest in the white population, about 1 in 38, lowest in the black population, about 1 in 1,000. But anyone can get melanoma, no matter what the color of their skin is. Bob Marley was a reggae singer from Jamaica. He died of melanoma when he was 36. It began under the nail of a big toe, and before anyone knew it was happening, it spread to his brain. He died of melanoma tumors on his brain. More recently, Dr. Matori, who was a breast cancer surgeon here in Boston, lost her life to melanoma when she was 48. It began on her scalp, and it was hidden by her hair until it was too late. About 30% of new melanomas develop from a pre-existing mole. Most of the other 70% develop from clear skin. There are two kinds of moles, normal and atypical. Normal moles like these have sharp borders with the surrounding skin. They have uniform color and they're less than a quarter of an inch in diameter. Atypical moles usually look different from normal moles. You see two examples here. Flat atypical moles may have an irregular shape, fuzzy border, or non-uniform shades. Raised atypical moles like this one very often have a fried egg surface. Looks like a little yolk surrounded by a flat, fuzzy area. And most atypical moles are more than a quarter of an inch in diameter. Some more information about moles. The chance of melanoma developing from a normal mole is very small, less than 1 in 3,000. Much higher from an atypical mole, about 1 in 100, and that's true for every atypical mole you may have. They're also more likely to arise from from a flat or slightly raised mole than from a fully raised mole that you've had for a long time. Moles with hair growing from them are no more likely to develop melanoma than similar moles without hair. This is a simulated progression of an atypical mole into a melanoma. And you can see changes happening during the progression. Change is the key warning sign that a growth on your skin may be a melanoma or other kind of skin cancer. The three most common changes are an increase in size, a change in color, or a change in shape. And you can see all three of those changes happening during this progression. The change can also be in the surface of the growth, the way it feels to the touch. And the most dangerous change is when there's an increase in thickness anywhere within a growth on your skin. A new molar growth that shows up out of the blue wasn't there a couple of weeks ago and seems to be growing. And that's especially true if you don't have many moles or if the new one looks different from those you do have. What you don't want to do is wait for the non-visual warning signs like bleeding or ulceration or itching, because by then you may be compromising your chance of survival. There are two major kinds of melanoma. They're called radial and nodular. Radial melanomas grow two-dimensionally on the surface of the skin at first. They typically look unusual or ugly, and because of that, they're very easy to self-detect. In adults, about 80% of new melanomas are radial. Nodular melanomas grow mostly downward beneath the skin. They often look innocent, and for that reason, they're more difficult to self-detect. In younger people, about half of new melanomas are nodular. These are four photos of radial melanomas. As I mentioned, their growth is two-dimensional at first. They usually exhibit two or more warning signs called the ABCD signs. A is asymmetry, and it means if you draw an imaginary line through the center of any of these, one half will not be a mirror image reflection of the other half. B is border. The borders of radial melanomas are usually irregular or notched. You can see that in all four of those photos. The colors can be multiple. You see that in the first one and the fourth one, or you may see multiple shades, which is apparent in this photo. And the diameters of radial melanomas are usually more than a quarter of an inch, even in the early stages. Most melanomas, if allowed to continue growing, will eventually enter a very dangerous phase called the vertical invasive growth phase. That's when the clock starts ticking rapidly on survival. And what you're looking at in these photos are three different vertically growing melanomas, as seen by the surface. This one, you see two little dark bumps. Well, let me get on here. All right, so this one you see two little dark bumps. This one is early enough, so it's probably curable. Here you see a distinct brown nodule. Time will tell whether this one is curable. And when you see a nodule this large above the surface of the skin, it means there's been extensive penetration beneath the surface, and that one was fatal. What varies is the time that it takes for that dangerous growth phase to begin, and that depends on the kind of melanoma. For radial melanomas, you generally have between 6 and 12 months from the time it first becomes visible on the skin until it reaches the point of no return. For nodular melanomas, the time may be as short as 3 months. So radial melanomas begin in the thin outer layer of the skin, the epidermis. And while they're confined to that layer, they are 100% curable in a short outpatient visit. When they reach the border between the epidermis and the thicker underlying dermis at about 1 millimeter, they are usually still highly curable, again, usually in a short outpatient visit. As the tumor grows and it reaches the midpoint of the dermis at about 2 millimeters, the prognosis becomes somewhat less certain. And when it reaches the deep layers of the dermis at 3 or 4 millimeters, the prognosis is unfavorable. There are two reasons for that. First, as the tumor grows, it reaches a point where it begins to shed off malignant cells around it. And as it gets deeper into the dermis and subcutaneous layers, there are more and more blood vessels and lymph vessels nearby that can pick up some of those cells and carry them anywhere in the body. These are four photos of nodular melanomas. The first two are early stage, probably curable. The third one is a flesh-colored oval-shaped melanoma on an earlobe. It was about 2 millimeters thick, so time will tell whether it's curable. The fourth one was a large nodule on the ankle of a 12-year-old boy, and unfortunately it was fatal. Nodular melanomas usually don't have any of the A, B, C, D warning signs. They usually start from clear skin. They often look innocent, and you may have as little as 3 months to act from the time they first become visible on the skin. They have a different set of warning signs called the EFG signs, and all three of them have to be there to indicate the possibility of a nodular melanoma. If only one or two of the signs are there, it's very unlikely that what you're seeing is a nodular melanoma. E is elevated. It has to be partly or completely elevated above the surface of the skin. It has to be firm to the touch. If it's flabby, it's probably just a harmless skin tag. And it has to be growing for more than 2 weeks. Some growths, like a zit, for example, may show up subtly on your skin, grow for a week or two, and then stop growing. But nodular melanomas are out of control cancers, and once they start growing, they don't stop. About 5 to 10% of new melanomas are never found on the skin at all. They're only found after there's been an internal symptom. And most of those are caused by a process called surface regression, in which the immune system is able to destroy melanoma cells at the skin's surface, but not always before malignant cells have been released beneath the surface. And this photo shows a partly regressed melanoma. The three dark areas are where melanoma remains. In the middle, the melanoma has been cured, and it looks like normal skin in that area. It's very rare for a melanoma to actually originate internally, less than 0.2%. Well, now that you know what melanoma looks like, I'm going to give you a short quiz. Three of the growths you see in this slide were melanoma, and three were benign skin growths. In the next several seconds, if you have a pen, just jot down the numbers of the ones you think were melanomas. If you don't have a pen, make a mental note. And while you're thinking, I'm going to play a tune that I hijacked from Jeopardy. Okay, red arrows will indicate the melanomas, and I'll bet you're going to be surprised by some of these. So numbers 3, 6, and 4 were melanoma. 1, 2, and 5 were benign skin growths. Well, only one of those three that looks like a melanoma is number 3. It's large, way over 1/4 inch, has an irregular shape and uneven color. 6 and 4 look more like benign growths than they do like melanomas. But don't be disappointed if you miss some of these. This was a trick question. I withheld important information from you. That information was what any of these growths looked like a month or two before these photos were taken. Appearance alone is not always enough to clue you into the existence of a possible melanoma. You also need to know the history of growths on your skin. And the only way you can get that is to self-examine your skin regularly. And I'll show you a way of doing that shortly. The most surprising one to me was number 4. It was on the big toe of a patient who asked the dermatologist whether it should be removed. The dermatologist said it has sharp borders with the surrounding skin, it has uniform color, and it's less than 1/4 inch in diameter. So keep an eye on it, but if it doesn't change, you don't need to be concerned. Well, the patient said, I think it's been getting gradually larger over the past month or two. I'd feel better if you removed it. So the dermatologist removed it. A week later, the pathology report came back, and sure enough, it was an early melanoma. And that brings up another very important point, which is that you need to be your own advocate. If you have a growth on your skin that you're concerned about or suspicious of, never allow anyone or anything to prevent you from having it removed. We have a saying, when in doubt, have it out. I don't know anyone who ever regretted following that advice, but I know a few people are the next of kin who regretted not following it. So where does melanoma occur on the skin? Well, unlike the two carcinomas, it can occur anywhere, and about 30% of melanomas show up in locations that have never been exposed to sunlight. In white males, the back is the most common location for new melanomas, and in white females, the backs of the lower legs. Those are areas that get relatively little exposure during the cold months of the year, much heavier exposure in the late spring and summer. For darker skinned populations, the most common location of new melanomas are the feet and to a lesser extent the hands. That kind of melanoma also affects the white population, but it is not caused by sun exposure. So how do you check your skin to see if you have a growth that needs to be further examined by a healthcare professional? Once you get the hang of it, it's not terribly difficult. It takes about 10 to 12 minutes to do a complete head-to-toe self-skin exam. You need two mirrors, a large wall mirror in a well-lighted room like your bedroom or bathroom, and a hand mirror that has a long handle. You start by holding that hand mirror partly behind your head and neck, and after you've checked those areas, you move the hand mirror very slowly, partly behind your back and lower body. You do the same thing on both sides of your body, and while you're moving the hand mirror, you look into the wall mirror to see what's being reflected from it. The name of the game is be thorough. There isn't a single square inch on your body where a melanoma cannot develop. If you have a difficult time checking your back or scalp, get a family member, a partner, or a friend to help out. It's especially important to check your scalp. And if you have a lot of hair, that can be a nuisance. So I got rid of mine. The good news is you only need to do this 10-minute check once every month. But people who do it don't die from melanoma. It's free insurance for something that could easily save your life. Now, what do you do if you find something suspicious during your self-exam? Well, you want to get to a dermatologist as quickly as you can. If your insurance requires you to see a primary care doctor first, make sure you insist on a referral to a dermatologist. That's because most primary care doctors have little or no dermatology training in medical school. Right now, you probably know more about early self-detection of melanoma than 90% of U.S. primary care doctors. Dermatologists are often booked up months in advance. If the receptionist tells you they can't get you in for a few months, make sure you let them know if you have a growth that looks like a melanoma. And we have tons of photos on our website at skincheck.org. If you have a growth that's been changing noticeably for more than 2 weeks, or if you have a blood family history of melanoma. If the receptionist knows one or more of those 3 points, they'll usually do their best to get you in more quickly.
Now that you know what melanoma is and how to recognize it, I'd like to discuss the role of ultraviolet radiation in causing melanoma. The sun releases a wide spectrum of radiation, and it can be categorized according to energy. On the low energy side of the spectrum is infrared radiation. When you feel the warmth of the sun, it's due to infrared, and that doesn't harm you. When you see the colors around you, it's due to visible radiation, and obviously that doesn't harm you either. As you move toward the higher energy end of the spectrum, the next kind of radiation is ultraviolet A and ultraviolet B, and they are definitely harmful. If you go even further, you have high energy ultraviolet C and X radiation. Fortunately, that radiation is absorbed by the atmosphere and doesn't reach the surface of the Earth. There are two kinds of ultraviolet radiation that reach the surface of the Earth, and both of them increase your risk of melanoma and other skin cancers. The first is ultraviolet B or UVB, and it burns the skin. When you buy a sunscreen, the SPF rating refers to how well it protects your skin from UVB if the sunscreen is properly applied. That's a big if, by the way. UVA doesn't burn your skin, but it penetrates more deeply into it, and it can cause DNA changes within the genes of the cells of your skin. You get primarily UVB radiation from the sun and primarily UVA radiation from tanning lamps,
but both sources emit both kinds of radiation. The worst thing you can do to get melanoma is to use tanning beds regularly. And that's because the deep penetrating UVA radiation from tanning lamps is more than 10 times stronger than it would be from the same time in the sun. If you're under 35, every time you use a tanning bed, you're increasing your lifetime melanoma risk by 22%. And if you're under 30 and you use them 10 times or more in a year, you're increasing your risk by a factor of 8. So what do you do if you want to get a natural looking tan, but without increasing your risk of skin cancer? There's only one option, and that's to use a sunless tanner. The sunless tanners have dyes in them that are only absorbed by dead skin cells. And we all have a layer of dead skin cells on the outer edge of our skin, and we shed them off every week or 10 days or so. Well, you can't hurt or kill anything that's already dead, and these dyes are not absorbed by living cells. Two options for getting a sunless tan. The most effective, but also more time-consuming option is to buy an over-the-counter product and apply it yourself. If you're in a hurry, you can try using a spray tanning booth. Now, many people will tell you that using a sunless tanner often results in an unnatural orange color. That's only true if you use too dark a tanner for your skin. The trick is to choose a tanner that's just a little darker than your normal skin color and build up your tan over a few applications rather than trying to do it all at once with a dark tanner. There's a very good nonprofit site called sunless.com that asks you questions about your skin, and based on your answers, it recommends specific sunless tanners that it thinks may be effective for you. These photos show a young lady who has what we call type 1 skin, very pale white skin, never tans, burns on even slight exposure to sunlight. And the bottom photo shows what she looks like after a few self-tanning applications. So how do you protect yourself from the sun? Not a good idea to depend on sunscreen alone. When you choose one, get one that is labeled broad spectrum because that has ingredients that help block UVA and UV. If you're confused by reading all the ingredients on a sunscreen label, you can't go wrong by finding one that has zinc oxide. Zinc oxide is a great broad spectrum protectant, and these days they use micronized zinc oxide, which is invisible. It's not like the old white zinc oxide that was used years ago. We recommend using a sunblock stick rather than liquid sunscreen on your face, especially on the most exposed parts of your face, which are your nose, your lower lips, your upper cheeks, and the tops of your ears. The ingredients in a sunblock stick won't run into your eyes or mouth like a liquid sunscreen may sometimes do. It's a good idea to combine the use of sunscreen with protective clothing. And the best protective clothing has a UPF rating of 50 or 50 plus. UPF is the same as SPF, except it only applies to fabric. A hat with a wide brim that goes all the way around your head so that you protect your ears and neck as well as your forehead, and sunglasses that are labeled 100% UV protection. Not a good idea to be in direct sunlight between the peak hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. when intensity is the greatest. And you also need to protect your skin against reflected sunlight. You can be under a beach umbrella or in the shade, and sunlight reflecting off of light surfaces like the ones you see here and then onto your skin can result in heavy skin damage. Also, UVA radiation can penetrate clouds to a much greater extent than visible light, so you definitely need to use sun protection even on a cloudy day. So how do you choose and apply a sunscreen? Unfortunately, the SPF rating of sunscreens is far less important than how heavily you apply them, and very few of us apply them heavily enough. Most of us apply between 1/4 and 1/2 of the amount of sunscreen needed to get the benefit of the rated SPF. Well, if you have a SPF 100 sunscreen, about the highest you can get, and you only apply a quarter of the amount, the true SPF your skin is seeing is the fourth root of 100, which is 3.1. If you apply half the amount, it's the square root of 100, which is 10. Now, what I'd like you to do is pretend you're out in the sun in a swimsuit and hold out one of your hands, cup it as deeply and tightly as you possibly can. If you can do that now, go ahead and do it. Now pretend you're filling that cupped hand with liquid sunscreen until it's just about to overflow. That's the amount of sunscreen you need to apply initially if you're in a swimsuit in the sun. And you need to reapply that same amount at least once every 2 hours, anytime after your towel dry, whenever you come out of the water, and anytime that you're sweating heavily. So an average adult spending a full day in a swimsuit in the sun should go through a complete 6 ounce container of sunscreen by themselves during that day. And I'll bet none of you use that much or know anyone who does. And if that's the case, welcome to most of the population, because we're deceiving ourselves into thinking we're getting much more protection from sunscreen than what we are really getting. The final slide is about vitamin D. It's an essential vitamin, and you probably know that one way of getting it, excuse me for a second while I get rid of this connection. So you probably know that one way of getting vitamin D is to expose your skin to sunlight. That's not the only way of getting it. Okay. So vitamin D begins with a natural chemical called dehydrocholesterol, which is present in all human skin. When dehydrocholesterol is exposed to UVB radiation, it's converted into vitamin D3. And that's exactly the same vitamin D supplement. So you don't need sun exposure in order to get vitamin D3. Now, vitamin D3 is not vitamin D, it's a precursor. And in the liver, it's converted into hydroxyvitamin D3. And then in the kidneys, that's further converted into dihydroxyvitamin D3. And that's really what vitamin D is. It's dihydroxyvitamin D3. So I'm going to stop sharing now and invite you to ask questions. And don't be shy. I like getting questions.
Yeah.
In some of your earlier slides, you showed pictures of moles, for example, with a millimeter ruler. Do you have any app that a person could use to just take a picture of a mole and already has a built-in ruler on it, and then take a picture every month or every quarter to compare the size? It's just it'd be very convenient that way.
Absolutely. That's a very good idea to keep track of your moles, and if you have any that are changing or new, start photographing it at least once every month. Yeah, you don't need to really do it more often than that. And if you do, you're going to see things that aren't there probably. But anyways, yeah, that's a very good way of tracking your growths, your moles.
Steve, another question. What do you recommend for eye protection uh, relative to melanoma and other types of cases?
Either sunglasses that are labeled 100% UV protection, or actually most ordinary prescription glasses have plastic in them that absorbs, they all absorb UVB to a great extent. Most of them also absorb UVA, so you don't necessarily need sunglasses. Your prescription glasses may be all that you need.
Well, Steve, this has been very informative. Thank you very much. To all of the folks in the room here, the summer months are coming. You're going to be out with, some of you will be out with family, either kids or grandkids at swimming pools, on the beach, or whatever. And when they're in their swimming suits, that's a perfect time for you to visually inspect and say, are you aware of this?
Yeah.
Let's protect not only yourselves, but all of your relatives.
Right. That's a very good point. But also, it's a good idea to have uh, children and adults, for that matter, wear rash guards, which are a form of sun protective clothing and will keep the harmful UV rays away from your skin.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Steve, we're going to have to continue on with our meeting, but this has been wonderful. Thank you very much. Um,
You,
and
you're very welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm going to send you an email that has links to our website and to a video of an earlier presentation that was like this, but it was converted into a video, and it has most of the same content as this presentation. And I'll get that to you today.
excellent. And I just wanted to let you know that because of your wonderful presentation, in thanks for your presentation, we'll be giving a donation to the Sports Mentorship Academy in your name.
Oh, great. I appreciate that. Thanks again for having me, and I wish you continued success with your mission.
Thank you very much. Well, that was a great program, and I hope we all pay heed to Steve's recommendations for self-examination and for examination of those around you. So I'm going to do a quick happy bucks. There's very good news on this front. As you can see, after our last meeting, we are up to 951 of our $1,000 goal. And I encourage all of you to donate towards Happy Bucks, but I will also tell you that if there's any remaining amount between that 951 and 1,000, I'm going to cover it. So anybody who has a Happy Buck today, I know a number of you have given an extra $1 for the meeting, as Carol and I did, but Vicky has some Happy Bucks here. Oh, you actually use this one. Use this one. Sorry, that one isn't working very well.
And we're happy to say that we have Tina and Libby visiting back from New Zealand. They were exchange students. Libby was here in 2006, 2007, and Tina was up in Maple Cove, Austria, and they came back. And then we've got our granddaughters, Evelyn and Nora, here with us. So we've got some Happy Bucks for them.
Excellent. Anyone back here?
I have a guest today that most of you know. Luca's joining us. She's here for 30 more days and she's going back home. So
I also have one because it's today in 30 days I'm gonna fly back, and it's a sad but it's a happy buck because I got to experience this whole year. So thank you very much.
$8 from the Rotarians, $20.
So how many of you want to say something from those extra bucks? All right, Lori.
Celebrating 2 wedding anniversaries. Yesterday was my parents' 65th wedding anniversary. They only wanted to celebrate with taco salads from Newt's, so that's all we did. And today is my husband Todd and I's anniversary, 43 years.
Wow.
I'm throwing in some happy bucks for my niece who just graduated high school and is competing in the state track meet next week. She set the school record for high jump and pole vault this year. So she's really rocking them out. She'll be at UND competing on their track team next year.
That's over here. Oh, here, Ashik's first. Okay.
Thanks. A few happy bucks. We have 2 graduating in our family. Christy and I are celebrating our anniversary next week, and 2 trips before I go to Calgary. One this weekend to Chicago for the American Medical Association, and there's the aerospace medicine, which is also going on this week between space and our planet Earth. So thank you so much.
Excellent. Over here with Sarah.
A couple happy bucks. Oh, I thought we were supposed to leave.
That's only
Never let
me.
people. Oh, okay. For Doug and I participated in the Strive program at John Marshall this past year, and both of our students just graduated last Saturday. Deshaun and Lucas, we're very proud of them.
John threw my extra dollar, but if you want somebody to talk, I'll take the mic. My happy buck went to last Thursday. We had a rotation day at Tilson's. I think I found a new garage for my vehicles. It was very good, very informative, so that was wonderful. And on a sad note, if you're sports fans, this is the last series of the 24-25 hockey season. Edmonton won last night in overtime, 4-3 against Florida Panthers. 6 more games to go, possibly.
Back to your June.
Who else?
So my wife Cheryl and I put in a happy buck. And there's a good reason for that. We have, as Cheryl says, a little nugget. It's about this big. And he is due in first couple of weeks of December. So this will be our second grandchild. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you all. Appreciate it. And I think I'm going to have you do some further introductions in a second. And we welcome Luca. So I think we've covered all of our guests, I believe. Yes? Good, good. Randy Stocker was going to give some information about an upcoming event in our community. Come on up, Randy.
I'll talk here, that's fine.
Only with the microphone, because there's somebody on. We can do it from there.
Okay, Rochester Fest is coming up June 24th to 28th. We've got 125 activities during those 5 days, including 18 bands, dance performances, lots of kids activities, so just a ton going on. A couple of things. We're also bringing the America's Freedom Traveling Tribute Wall. It's a wall that honors the veterans for American veterans for the history of wars. So names are current as of January 1st of this year. So about 62,000 names on the wall to be at Soldiers Field all week. I have brochures here that tell all about the activities at Rochester Fest. And inside the brochure is our button bargain deals. So for a $5 investment, you can save about $200 in button bargain deals. And Ashok, my biggest customer so far. And I do have buttons here if you're interested. Some of the deals come from Canadian Honker, Blue Mackay, Jersey Boy, Pasquills, Holland Dairy. You can save a lot of money with a button. It helps us too. For those of you that are elder, parking is always a problem. I put together a golf cart brigade. So if you can't find parking close, we're going to bring a golf cart out to you to bring you to Rochester Fest. I know that concerns a lot of people. And then on Thursday, June 26th, we're having a community day. And I invite all the Rotarians, and I've invited all the civic organizations and referral clubs to come out to Rochester Fest on Thursday at 4 o'clock in the evening for a community day to have fun, to recruit new members, to drink beer and spend money. So, again, I got the brochures here. Be sure to pick one up as you're leaving. If you want some buttons, let me know. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
And most importantly, I need volunteers. I need about 40 volunteers per day. So if you can, 40. So if you can find 3 or 4 hours once or twice during the Rochester week, and let me put you to work having fun serving the community, whether it's pouring beer or helping the veterans or working the kids. I really need you all. Thank you.
And I helped out in the beer tent last year and honestly had a great time. So consider it. We have a number of birthdays this month, and Judy, who is online, wave, happy birthday this month. And then Bill and Christine, and then a number of anniversaries. The second one is of note. He's been here for 22 years. So Okay, it's going on. And Randy, I did have a slide up here for you. I'm trying to move through this at a faster pace because the presentation was a little longer. We knew that, and I'm just doing my best to come through all of them. So we have 2 exchange students. One was here locally, one was in the cities back in 2006. So they're actually twin sisters, is that right?
Yeah.
Do you both want to come up and talk to the group for a couple of minutes?
We'll just go, yeah, then move the microphone you can read. Okay. Thank you for having us here
We'll
today.
get right up in front of it.
Can we get chair? Good chair, yeah. So before we begin, we just want to shout out to Lynn Clary, who is attending the Boulders Golf outing today, couldn't be here. So we met him last night at the Burn Festival. So yeah. My name is Christina, but I go by Teen. And this is my twin sister, Olivia, who goes by Livia. So I'll give you a brief background about who we are, and then Livia will touch base on our year abroad. So we are from the west coast of the North Island of New Zealand, from a small rural town called Stratford, with a population of around 5,000 people. I'm married to CJ with 2 children, Bella, who is 10 years old, and Connor, who is 8 years old. And Livia is married to Brendan with 4 children. So Harper is 10, Regan is 8, Mason is 5, and Freya, who is 4. So I work at Fonterra, which is the biggest dairy company in New Zealand. I've been at Fonterra for the last 14 years, and my role there is a process manager. So I'm in charge of approximately 55 staff, which manufacture all your specialty cheeses like Havartis, the Blue Veins, Fetters, and those types of cheeses. And Libby has worked in the early childhood education sector for the last 17 years, and she is also a manager of the centre in our local town. So 19 years ago, we did a student exchange when we were 16 years old to Minnesota. So as I said, yeah, I was based in Maple Grove and attended Wayzata High School, and Libby was based in Rochester and attended Law High School. Is that correct? Yeah. So Libby will just quickly touch base, yeah, on our time abroad. Yeah.
Okay, so Rotary gave us the opportunity of a lifetime where we have now made lifelong connections and extended our family. To those of you who are here today who host exchange students or being involved and who support guide, thank you. We are 2 of these young people whose life you have shaped. We were able to encounter many different experiences throughout our year abroad, including the East Coast tour. So getting to see so many amazing places. It was a year we'll never forget. We are back here now reconnecting with our USA families. We want to give Vicky and Terry a massive shout out for hosting Tina and I on our visit back to the States. We're so very grateful, and words cannot express how appreciative we are for everything you guys have done for us. We can't wait to have you guys back in New Zealand. Some of our favourite places while we were here in the States was definitely the East Coast tour was definitely a highlight that was organised by Rotary. And then when we arrived in the States, we also did a little bit of a tour around LA.
Yeah, so we did like Universal Studios, Disneyland, Venice Beach, all those with all the exchange students. So it was an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, and also the Mamma Mia we went to see on Broadway. So like we tell everyone about that. So why people should be involved? It gave us so many opportunities and experiences and create lifelong relationships. Rotary was an amazing organisation who offered so much support throughout our year abroad through appointing host families that support before we leave our home country and while we're abroad, and an allowance per month to help with with costs. So yeah, like it was pretty a memorable experience, but it has taken 19 years to get back here. But all my workmates were like, "Let's hurry up and get on that plane." I've been telling them for the last year that we're coming back. So yeah, it's been amazing so far. So we're here till the 16th of June. So yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Every time we hear a story about a past exchange student, whether it's somebody leaving from Rochester and going abroad or coming here, it's quite obvious the impact that it's had. And I greatly appreciate any of you who have hosted an exchange student or have had kids that have have gone abroad. So if we go back to our presentation. That one. Yep. And then move forward. So I told you now on versus having a list of announcements, I would provide a moment for announcements. Does anybody have any additional announcements today? Frank and Asha.
Asking for a little bit of grace as I'm trying to get the dues billing out the last couple days. So appreciate those that are saying, Frank, is it there yet? Or Frank, how come I got this before that? But I appreciate everybody. They will be out in the next couple days. And Dave got the email out this morning with the help of Joseph here. So the two of us are tag teaming trying to get all this done. So thanks for a little bit of grace here. Thank you.
And just something to add to that, you'll notice in the news article, thank you, Lori, in the moccasin flower, there was a due date of the 26th of June. But you'll also notice it was a due date with either a payment for your dues or at least your intention. Because by July 1st, we need to get back to the district and international and tell them what our total membership is. So if for any reason there's a problem with meeting that due date of the 26th, don't worry about that. Just let us know if your intent is to continue. That's the most important part by that June 26th date. Okay. Thank you in advance. And Ashar.
Yeah, just a quick reminder, we have celebration of clubs tonight. You can join by Zoom. Thanks.
So a couple of things coming up. The installation of our next district governor, Glenn Bowers, will be held on June 12th. And then the celebration and awards in the park will be held today at 5 p.m. at Bunker Hills Regional Park. I plan, and this will probably surprise Cheryl, but my plan is to go to that this afternoon. Go to the next slide.
With me?
Yeah. So this kind of came up quickly, but thank you for the reminder, Ashak. And yes, I had already signed up for this. I don't know that I'll be able to go to the installation of the new district governor, but I did plan on going to this. I think Stuart's going to this as well, and maybe some of the rest of you. Stuart did a wonderful job of getting our application in for all of the awards. If you are aware, over the last couple of years, we haven't done that great of a job of getting our information out to the district, telling them what wonderful things this club has been doing. This year, we did it and then some. So I'm excited about tonight's celebration in the park. Both of those events that I just showed you, the signups are out on the District 5916 website. So go to the next slide. So a big thanks to Chris Colby. Way to go. We did eventually, and it took a couple of days because we had rain on our first and second day, even the rain out day for the Quarry Hill tree planting. But on the 27th, we did go, and I think, Chris, do you want to just mention, I think it was like 250 trees, like 175 trees and 75 shrubs or something like that, or maybe I have it back.
No, you had it about right. We had about 25 people out for this event from 3 clubs, and we had a really good turnout. We actually pounded through all of those because the ground was wet, so we could dig holes easily, and so we did a good job of getting all those trees planted. We'll see if they grow. We got rain right after it, so maybe they did. Well, hopefully they did. And we had a nice get together afterward for those who were able to make it for pizza at Mr. Pizza. So it was a good event.
Okay. And it was a lot of fun. I got to meet Steve Sperling's granddaughter. If we go back to the pictured here with her grandfather. She was a lot of fun, and they worked very hard together planting trees. So thanks to everybody who joined us that day. It was a great event, and thanks, Chris, again for getting that all organized. And again, we're making the donation to the Sports Mentorship Academy based on the presentation today and the other presentations we've had during the year. So with that, is there anything that I missed? Lori, that was an incredible newsletter this time, by the way. That was a full newsletter with lots of pictures and everything. So if any of you have not gone out and looked at that newsletter and drilled down, please do. I encourage you to, because like I say, it was a great newsletter this time around. Yeah, John.
How much did we need to make the poll?
I think we needed $49.
39.
49.
We got 59.
Hey. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you all year long for your donations. Now, that's the one fundraiser that actually goes to club administration. All of our other fundraisers go out to the community or to our Rotary Club of Rochester Community Foundation or other activities. That's the one that is there to help support our club and its activities. So thank you very much. That's something that helps us balance the budget. Another note, Joseph has taken over our administrative activities. He's doing a wonderful job. If you find any sort of bumps in the road, we're all learning as we go, but it's going very effectively and very well. Because of that, now our administrative portion is all voluntary. Thus, that caused a reduction in our overall expense for the coming year. And we're passing that reduction on to you. If you notice, your dues notices are not going to be increasing. As a matter of fact, they're decreasing. So we've been able to decrease our dues this coming year by $50. That includes having funds going to the Rochester Grants Committee. If you remember, we had to do a fundraiser all year to get our $3,000. That's included now in our budget. There's a program called LIFT. It used to be called Fast for Hope. And every club was supposed to be donating $15 per member. That's all included in our budget. So we are getting back to the point now where we are making contributions to the district that we haven't been over the last couple of years, and doing it at a lower cost for all of you. So that's all good news, but a lot of it is thanks to the work Frank and Joseph and others who are and Lori, who are helping cover that administrative activity that Churston had in the past. There's a nice article about Churston in the last newsletter. So if you don't see any of the other articles, go to that one. I also sent out an email this morning that demonstrates all of the activities this club has been involved with over the past year. It's really amazing. So thanks to all of you for that. And with that, well, yes.
Oh, so Dave, just a pattern, following the numbers. We have celebrated 100 years. We raised $1,000. We got $10,000 for the bench as part of our.
More than that, yes.
More than that, and then Randy's dream of getting to $100,000 as a margin for Rochester Fest next year is realized. I can't wait for the $1 billion contribution that we've done over 100 years.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Well, thank you, sir. That went well. I hope you got those. All the presentations. You see, everything working all right. Yeah, I don't think we could have asked for better.
Yeah, yeah, yes. So it is, basically, Judy would be, I mean, today there were two people, sometimes there are more. I mean, and we need to do this. Because, okay, I will start, and now